On the morning of Boxing Day at 8:30, an earthquake with a magnitude of 9 struck near the Andaman Sea and sent a tsunami to neighbouring countries all around the Pacific Ocean, reaching countries as far as Africa.
Oh my God,
Nak, hari ini kiamat. Ampunkan dosa saya, Bunda.
Through several meetings with my lecturer Swami Chief Father Darajan, he suggested that something could be done for the people who were affected by the tsunami. After discussion with Aramati, the university decided that they would help sponsor me so that I could make this master's degree into reality. Although I am not from the severely damaged part of where the tsunami hit, Indonesia is actually my home country. Design and Designer has had ideas that we can be better prepared for the disaster with the creation of products and services. I was interested to know if Designer could go and contribute directly to the disaster zone.
Being of Chinese descent in Indonesia, we learned that our racial descent can leave communities with racial tension. Often a fight will break out between Chinese and native Indonesians.
I first arrived back to my hometown before leaving for Aceh. I was reminded by my friends and relatives about my skin color. I was also told about our religious differences between Chinese and native Indonesians. I let go all of this concern by reminding myself that they were probably going to be just as curious as me. I don't know enough about them and they don't know enough about Chinese. The idea of going to Aceh then became interesting for me to figure out this conflicting belief.
He began researching, getting to know Aceh, and found out that Aceh was not only destroyed by a disaster, but there had also been a conflict going on for 30 years between the Free Aceh movement and the Republic of Indonesia. There was a lot to think about, and he didn't know what to expect or prepare for. Bendy had been living in Melbourne for the past 7 years. Being of Chinese descent was going to be the first challenge to overcome, as he would have to face Aceh, which was quite hostile from years of conflict and was destroyed by the tsunami.
I think I had a good reason to be anxious.
He felt a mixture of both anxiety and excitement before his trip. He began sending hundreds of emails to anyone relating to Aceh disaster, and to his surprise, only 3 replied.
After much trial, I finally found an Achenese that let me stay in their place. His name was Ponchut, an Achenese who studied anthropology in Yogyakarta. With only one contact, I left Melbourne. I've never done fieldwork before, and I was by myself. I arrived and had the warmest welcome that dispelled all the myths that I have been told by friends and relatives. I was picked up from the airport by Ponch's relative. Their hospitality was outstanding. They even borrowed a car from their neighbor just to pick me up. Brother, sister, and brother-in-law. The funny thing is, up until today, I've still not met this Ponchut.
Aceh was busy. Surprisingly, the traffic was very active. There was still some parts of the city that survived the disaster. You could tell by seeing all the Russian, Arabian and Chinese number plates that cars were brought in from other cities and other countries.
Actually, visiting is way different than reading about it online or watching the news. It really felt like I was living inside my project. I went to the disaster zone on the very afternoon I arrived. I then began to realize this was extraordinary.
The effect of the tsunami was massive. It broke all kinds of infrastructure, personal belongings, buildings and houses.
The tsunami broke everything flat to the ground.
What was now left was mostly flat land that was once occupied by a village.
Occasionally, parts of buildings were the only things that left to tell stories.
Additionally, the city had a certain amount of tension. There were all kinds of armed forces carrying AKs and guns. Armed vehicles swirled around the city. Visiting directly is a total immersion. The city, the people, the disaster, the eating, bathing, sleeping, and getting around was an entirely new experience. Your senses cannot help but be heightened. Your awareness increases.
I intended to reach as many agencies as I could. I pulled up my list of 400 organizations that work in Aceh.
Alfie, Ponchet's brother-in-law, quickly suggested Venny to map out which organisations to visit. He was lucky that the host family was very keen to assist. Alfie helped him to group which one was located close within an area. Without this help, transportation would be a challenge, let alone finding an agency's office. A lot of the aid organisation offices were located close to each other. Vendy went door to door and spoke to the aid agency, giving proposals and asking if he could do a project with them. Under the hot sun and dusty air, Vendy visited the aid organisation on his list, and later on any organisation that he came across.